Hello guys, this is Adler King, the DBA King. Today I'll show you how to build a database using both the SQL Wizard and the SQL code. Okay, so I know it's probably there are probably many videos on that already, but I want to go into detail because it's important when you're creating a database. So let's begin. All right, all right. When creating a database using SQL Wizard, the first thing you should always know is that you need to know what this database for and what data is going to go to that database and how often this database is going to be used. Then once you know this information, then it becomes very easy for you to build a database accordingly. All right, so to create a database using the wizard, all you do, you go to database, you right click on the database, and then you click new database. All right, so now once you get to this window, all you have to do is to name the database. So it's very important. The reason that you need to know what a database is for is because you want to be able to set the size of the database so that the database um, is capable of doing what you created for. Okay, so now the first thing you do, you create the database name. You give the database a name. Let's call this database PDS. Put it in capital PDS. All right. So now once you create that database, you give that database the name. You can change the owner of the database, which you can always go to this file and select the owner. Most of the times, some people will set it to SA, but in my case, I'll leave it default and then it will be created under the DBO schema. Okay, and once you finish doing that, then you have to set the size of your database. Like the default size for the database for the file is 2 gig and 1 gig for the log file. Therefore, you can change it accordingly to your need. All right, so in my case here, I set it to 20 for the file, for the database file, and for the log file, let me set it to 5. I'm going to set the log file to 5. All right, so um, then you have to, in fact, set up the growth of your database. It is very important that you set your database to grow because if the database does not grow, when it's full, it will be done and that's it. No more data can go to that database. Nobody can use that database. It will be over. Okay, so that's the reason why it is important to set the growth of your database. You know, if you don't want the database to grow, all you do is go here and disable auto growth, and that will not allow the database to grow. Or you can restrict file growth, okay, to a specific maximum. But in that case, you know, now the default is a growth by 1 meg. So I want it to be more than that. Let me make it grow by let's say 5 meg. I want it to grow by 5 meg, you know. And for the log, also you want to set that to auto growth. It's already set to 10% since that's a regular small database. I'll leave it 10%. So that way, every time the log grow, it'll grow by 10%. Okay, so it's the same. If you don't want it to grow, you can simply uh, deselect the auto growth, and that will disable auto growth on that. Okay, I leave it with this. And then another important thing is whenever you create a database, you need to always put that in mind that your database file must be in a separate drive with in a separate drive and your log file has to be in a separate drive. This is very important for for the speed of the database. As long as both drive have a good speed, your database will be very fast. All right. So never put your database in the C drive when you create a database, because if that C drive crash, then your database lost. It's done. But it also, since the operating system is going to be accessed by other processes, you want to make sure that the drive that you set the database into is a drive that is only there for the database files, not for any operating system or anything like that, because that will slow down your database itself. So that's very important. In my case, I'm going to leave my C drive, but I will put it in a separate folder. I'll put that file in the PDS DB, and my log will be going to PDS log. That will simply differentiate my file and my database file, my log in the file. So if you don't want to have, once you select this, basically you're gonna have the database will be named exactly that. Whatever name you have here, that's what your files will be names. But if you don't want this name, you can change them just by putting a different name here, and that will automatically change the name for your database. So once you finish to configure what you want in the database, you can go to option and do some more configuration. One important thing here is to set the page verify on your database. Mo the One option is the checksum. The checksum is a very good one that check the database and verify the pages. Okay, that is very important. So when you creating a database, you can select the checksum and set that up, because that will help the database in case something goes wrong in the database. Then the checksum will check the database and give that information. All right. I'm not gonna do much of this one here. It also, if you make sure you check if to see if the database is set to multiple users, because multi-user allow multiple people to access the database at a time. A single user will only allow one person to access that database, and unless this person disconnect from the database or log off from the database, nobody else can access when you use the single user. All right, and the restricted user will restrict all the users pretty much. Okay. All right, so now you have what we call the recover model. The recover model is very important here. Depending on what you create the database for, you will see in your recover model you have a full, a book log, and simple. The book log, the full basically book log operation, and the book log do not book log. And the simple is a simple, just like it is called simple. So with the full, you can perform the three-level backups for your database, including the full, the differential, and the transaction log backup. Whereas in the simple, you can only perform the full backup. All right, and book log, also, this is not does not book operation. It does not book log operation. Basically, even though it's called book log, it doesn't book log operation. So this book log is very important. Like if you are performing data entry, like you know massive data entry, if you're doing book log data operation, inserting a lot of data or large amount of data using file like Excel sheet and loading those data, to your database setting to book log operation will help the database to not grow, because every time you load data into the database, it automatically truncate the log for you. Okay, whereas in the full operation, the log will only be truncated when you do when you take a transaction log backup. Once your transaction log backup are taken, then the log will be truncated, which is very important. So we're done with that. Creating database using the wizard. Okay. So once you click OK here, your database will automatically be created. All right, and boom, That's it. So now if we go check our folder here, you'll see we have that PDS database. And we go check the log, there's a PDS underscore log. And in the database list as well, you'll see we have a database called PDS. But this database is an empty database. There's nothing, there's no table and nothing in there, no views and nothing. It's simply the database. Remember, whenever you create a database, it is a copy of the model. So, since it's a copy of the model, it brings a lot of things from the model database. So that's the reason why you will see we have some views there, and those views are coming from the model database. Okay, so now let's see how to create the database using SQL code. All right, so now we're gonna create the database using SQL code. All right, to create a database using SQL code is simple, just like you are creating a table in the database. All you have to type is create database, okay, and then you give the database a name. Let's call this database PDS2, all right, so we can differentiate it from the other one. And we're gonna create that on the primary, all right, on the primary file group. All right, so now we're gonna give a name to the database file. All right, let's see, I'll call this PDS2 underscore file. That's just to make sure we can differentiate file. Okay, so now we're gonna give it a file name, and the file name basically we're gonna put it in the same folder where we have the other one. Okay, so we go here and then we're gonna copy the path of that folder. Copy this path and go back here and paste it in here. Once that's done, you can put a slash and then you can give it a name. Now I'm gonna call that PDS underscore, let's say, file that MDF. That's for the database file. And then the size of that, let's say I'm gonna give it a size of let's say 20 meg, just like the other one, 20 meg. And I'm gonna give it file growth that is equal to, let's say, a file growth, let's say 5 meg. That should be enough for it. Then we want to create a log file for that database, or the file log, or the logging the database to a specific place. All right, so now we're gonna be doing pretty much the same thing, just like a copy of whatever you have up there already. We give it a name. That's PDS2 underscore, let's say, log that, and LDF, which is no, not LDF. I'll say log, comma. I mean, then I'm gonna give it a file name and make the file name equal pretty much the same. We're gonna get the location from the folder again, which is the log folder. Okay, once that done, we can paste that here, then put a slash, and what do I call this? Let me call that PDS underscore log um with that LDF. Okay, and I'm gonna give it a size as the other one. Then I'm gonna give it a size of 5 meg, and I will give the file growth a size of, let's say, 10 percent. It's gonna grow by 10% every single time it grow. Okay, so with this, I would say this is it. Once you have that set up, you're pretty much done. Your database is ready to go. So if I run the script, that should automatically create my database. But I have to make sure I select in my selection the master database so that it creates the database under the master. And once I hit run, you can run the execute, hit the execute, or click F5. That will create your database for you. Invalid usage of the option name. All right, let me see. Name equal log 2. All right, file name LDF PDS growth PDS growth slash LDF MDF. Okay, nem. I put nin, which is bad. So it's important to make sure you spell everything correctly. All right, so now if I hit execute again, that should create the database. Something else happened. Okay, let me see. Cannot create file PDS log because it's already exists. Therefore, I'm gonna have to give it a different name. I'm gonna say 2, just in case that exists already. All right, then boom, the database is created. So now if we go back here, and as you can see, the other one was already called log, so that's why we couldn't create that. So now with 2, now we have 2 log file and also have 2 database. All right, so one was created to the SQL to the wizard, and the other one was created to code. So that's how simple it is to create a database. You know, and this is can be memorized once you start practicing doing it. So I'll say thank you for watching, and if you like this video, give me a thumbs up and appreciate it. Again, this is Adler King, the DBA King. See you later.